Hello and welcome to Sound Financial Bites, both on the podcast and our YouTube channel. We're so glad to have you, and we're pretty excited about our conversation we're going to have today. Let me first introduce Corey Shepard, president of Sound Financial Group.
Hello, and yes, excited is probably the word. Apprehensive may be the other one.
Well, Corey's apprehensive.
Paul is not at all.
I'm perfectly happy to just let it go with both barrels. Corey has a saying about Paul being talked off a ledge. Okay. And the subject of today is we're going to be looking at some of the financial entertainers out there, and we're going to be looking at what they have to say. And this is going to be a new series of ours looking at what they have to say and whether or not we can find evidence that it's accurate. And it's going to be an exercise in accurate thinking, the way that we consume information as consumers in several different areas. It's just we're the experts on the financial side. But you can see this is the same kind of thing that would apply to all areas of your life. Corey, would you please just share with our audience a little bit about this talking Paul off a ledge? Yeah.
So the common meaning of that phrase is someone is feeling down, and we want to talk them off that ledge like they're a jumper. We don't want them to hurt themselves. Well, Paul, I picture more like Batman perched up on a ledge, ready to jump down,
just pounce and take somebody out.
So we're going to try to keep him off of that ledge, but know that as we get into it today and there's some fire comes out, and maybe it'll be me too, but I know it'll be Paul. It's coming only from that sense of care for the consumer and the clients that we work with and helping them find grounding and intellectual honesty and accurate thinking. So with that, let's jump into it.
Right now, I want to play a clip from where Jack Nicklaus is on the stand and he's being interviewed by Tom Cruise. He says, "You want me on that wall? You guys want me on that ledge. Wall. We want me on the ledge. We don't want me talked off the ledge, because that's when I take out a bad guy." All right, so let's talk financial entertainers. Financial entertainers are people whose job it is to keep you engaged and drive ratings. One easy way to think about it is financial entertainers, their customers are advertisers. You, as somebody watching their TV show, listening to their radio program, subscribing to their newsletter, you are the subscriber, the product that they sell to their advertisers. Okay. So their product is not financial information to you. You are the product being entertained, being sold to advertisers. Okay. That's not bad. They can be quite entertaining. I certainly grew up listening to a lot of them. Sometimes I will still put them on when I'm driving across the country and all I've got is AM radio. If I'm in a vehicle without satellite radio, here's the thing. That being the case, we need to spend some time talking about accurate thinking as it relates to the financial entertainers. And one last word before we jump into the first in this series, and that is two things can simultaneously be true. They could be good people, and their advice could fit perfectly well for the average person. The person who has the average net worth and average income in the United States. By the way, both of those are about $40,000 a year. I think the average income may be up to 45. But if you're things like living within your means, can you afford it? Be sure to start saving money. All of those things perfectly valid. It's when you get into higher income realms and when you start building a significant net worth and needing to do some real planning, a lot of what the financial entertainers say begins to fall apart. And this is one example of that. We're going to start with Dave Ramsey. Now, Dave Ramsey has a long-time reputation of being somebody who consistently touts 12% rate of return. And how you can get 12% rate of return, all you need is a good growth mutual fund. And we're going to examine whether or not that holds true here in a minute, but we're just going to listen to a little snippet of the show, pause it on and off, and this is all for educational purposes to help you understand how to do accurate thinking when you hear one of these.
But there's averaged around 12% a year. Can you tell me where you got that number from?
The market has averaged 12% a year. One of his listeners writing in. The market has averaged 12% a year. Can you tell me where you get that number from is what the question was.
Sure. S&P 500. The Standard & Poor's 500 is probably the most accurate measure of the stock market. Dow Jones Industrial.
Yeah, can we pause that?
Not Corey.
Well, and by the way, Dave Ramsey rant is not our title on the top left of that video. That's from YouTube. So We're not saying how he is.
That is really his rant. That's how he labels them on his channel.
Right. That's not our title. I mean,
no. That's his channel's title. Right. Is he calls it the Dave Ramsey rant.
So the S&P 500 index is the best indicator we have of how the 500 largest companies in the country are doing.
Mostly selected growth stocks that are U.S.-based companies.
Not any kind of market as a whole by any definition.
Yeah, like as an example, an academically allocated, globally diversified portfolio ought to have about 12,000 different securities in it.
And at least include some from other countries.
Oh, yeah.
And smaller companies. So, yeah, we're already off to a shaky factual start.
Yes.
The S&P 500 is an index that is the top 500 companies traded on the New York Stock Exchange. That is what we call the stock market. There are several markets.
Some people call
that the stock market on the news and financial entertainers.
The market where stocks are exchanged, the New York Stock Exchange, where we buy and sell. Anyway, the top 500 companies on there in terms of size, if you look at the average of the Standard & Poor and the estimates of what it would have been had those particular companies been in existence since the stock market's inception, you'll see an 11.5% to a 12% rate of return, average annual. And that's average annual. There's different ways to calculate the math on it, but that's the number that we use and the number that we're quoting all the time we're talking about.
Okay. So the number that we're quoting on the time is 12% average annual. Now we're going to show you an example of what average annual looks like. And I'm going to do it with a little drawing that I made because it's real fancy. Here's our very simple little drawing. Okay. Corey, how would you feel if I told you I got a 25% average annual rate of return fund?
Sign me up.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is how it's going to go. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to start with $100,000. 100,000. Okay. And the first year, year one, I got good news for you. Killed it. 100% rate of return. We now have 200,000.
That's called under promise, over deliver. Wow.
Yeah, you just take me to dinner. You're super happy, excited. Then comes year two, and we didn't do as well. We did negative 50%.
Whoa, you're killing me here.
This year, I guess I got to take you to dinner. Yeah. I'm real sorry that happened to you, but you're back down to 100,000. Year three. You know what? Things are looking up. 100% rate of return again.
The boys are back in town.
That's right, man. We're killing it, back up to 200,000. And you probably couldn't be much happier with me. You're seeing visions of early retirement, kids going to the best possible colleges. Shoo. And year four comes around, and we lose 50% again, and we have $100,000 now. Let's calculate our average annual rate of return. Now, the way we calculate an average annual rate of return is we take all of those, we add them together and divide by the amount of years. So that equals 100 as we add 100 minus 50, 100 minus 50. We have 100. We divide by 20 or by 4. And that gives us, that should be an equal sign, I suppose, equals 25%.
I've never been less excited about a 25% rate of return.
Because your actual return was 0. Now, this is an extreme example of the difference between average returns, where your asset manager or somebody watching an index adds up all of the different returns for each year, divides it by the amount of years. But that's not how money works, clearly illustrated by this, because the down years have a greater impact and the up years then have to grow off of a smaller amount of money.
So when Dave said just now, and I said, ooh, there's a couple different ways to calculate it. What was connecting for me is a distinction I'd like to make, which is what it did versus what you got.
Yes.
And so he's talking, and the fact that he said that phrase suggests to me that he has an understanding of this. Which is frustrating for me to hear him blatantly ignore. He's talking to people about what they should do to help them with what they're getting. Mm-hmm. He is really referencing an academic figure that really doesn't relate to anything in anybody's actual life.
Absolutely. And let's see what else there is out there that says about it. Well, this is part of the accurate thinking, like, wow, 12% really? Well, so I started with doing a Google search. And here we go. The average annual total return for the S&P 500 index over the past 90 years is 9.8%. Now, that goes all the way through 2017. In all fairness, he recorded this video in 2014. We're going to go deeper into it, but that's good to notice right there. Like, that's a long cry from 12, and we're going to see how big that difference can be in just a minute. We have another one from Investopedia, just so everybody can see we're willing to pull from
14.
Separate sources, that through 14 is approximately 10%. So they're taking the 9.8 or whatever and rolling it up a little bit. Why don't we go to MarketWatch? And what we're going to look at is average annual rates of return. I want to highlight this for you specifically. In the middle of the article, he mentions a brief detour. Okay, we're going to take a brief detour because the compounded return over 87 years was 9.8%. But the average was 11.8%. And see, the problem is what you get is what the compounded return was. There's fancier ways to say it, which is the arithmetic average or the arithmetic mean average versus the geometric average, which is this compounding return. The idea of what did you actually get if your money was in the beginning, and then you waited, and pulled all your money out. That is the real return somebody might receive. You can get even more detailed and talk about what if you'd actually put in the money every single year, because that's another rate of return entirely. All of them lower. All of them will always be lower than the average annual return. That gets quoted by Dave Ramsey, especially over longer periods of time. Here's the problem. That's not a little difference, the difference between. So let's stick with his idea of the 9.8%, and we'll compare it to 12 over a period of time that most people might normally invest. Now, for this first run at this, I want to do this just based upon like a normal person, no tax. We're going to assume that somebody else pays their taxes for them. So we'll start there. $100,000. Let's start with the 12% that he started with over 30 years. Grows to $2.9 million. So you're a 35-year-old. You managed to save up $100,000. You feel like $3 million is enough for you. Mic drop, done. Listen to Dave. I've got myself some good growth mutual funds. Probably don't need to plan anymore. I'm going to spend all my money because nearly assuredly, because the market does 12, I'm going to arrive there. And there we go. 2.9 million. No problem. I'm there. But let's talk a little more in reality. Let's just use this 9.8%. Now that's over since the beginning of stock market time anyway. But we'll just go ahead and use it, despite the fact we only have a 30-year period to make the point. And now it's 1.6 million. That's half, slightly more than half of the amount of money that was previously going to be projected. So if people are listening to Dave as a good growth mutual fund story, I've never heard him. He may have said it at some point. I've never heard him say, be conservative, though you should probably project X. It's nearly always him hammering the 12%, 12%. We're going to talk more about where somebody could actually get that in a minute, or where they could have gotten it versus what you actually got. But that's a big difference. And what if we had that after tax? Like there's actually taxes on this money over time. And let's say taxes took us down to 7.5. Now we're 875,000. Not anywhere near the 3 million we might have hoped for or projected for ourselves in the future.
Now I'll give Dave that his target audience is folks who are at a low end of the tax bracket. Mm-hmm. Like his average income low. So I'll give him the low end one. Maybe. But the difference between that 9.8 and 12, that is that what it did versus what you got.
Yes.
And so if we're thinking about what it did, that's a 50% pay cut.
Absolutely.
12%. People get all torqued out and upset about this stuff, but that's what it's done. And I own several mutual funds that have averaged well over 12% in the scope of their lifetime. And many of them, 100 is probably.
Can I make a comment there?
Will I find my spot again?
So I saw this and I said, okay, one of the things I've noticed is Dave, I don't know if I've ever heard him name a mutual fund ticker symbol in any of his videos. So I just went digging because I was dubious that they even existed. Well, he's not wrong. There are some that exist, at least according to Investopedia. There's an article I found, a long list, we'll put in the show notes, and it found one fund from 1934 when it started there, averaged 12% a year, and I was able to find all the data on Morningstar online.
And what's funny is that fund does exist, at least at the time of our recording, the time of the writing of that article, and it is the American Funds Investment Company of America. Okay, so you can go find it. What you would also find with that is for most of the life of that fund, and I think maybe even still today, it has a front-end load of 5.5%, meaning that even if you dropped in your money all the way back then, after paying the cost of having to acquire the fund, you might not actually have that now. We don't know, but we found one fund, and let's say with some additional searching, let's say there's 5. There's been 54,000 funds in existence by the time he recorded this video, 23,000 of which were closed by the mutual fund companies because they didn't perform. So yes, let's say there's 5 out of 54,000. That's not even 1% of all mutual funds that could have achieved that outcome. And the S&P 500 itself, a zero cost, academic number, the S&P 500's performance still in actual compounded rates of return didn't achieve that.
So and Dave wasn't alive in 1934 to buy that fund.
Yeah.
So and many of his listeners weren't. So I think a theme I'm coming back to is, was he dead wrong? No. Was he complete? Absolutely not.
Yes.
It's not 12% compounded. There is a difference. People criticize me.
There we go.
Laying out that difference.
I criticize a little. I'm not criticizing him, just as thinking.
Research, and this is what we based everything we're doing. Is this mentality? The recent piece of research said that the number one reason.
Incidentally, notice he said research. Once again, no ticker symbols and no citing of the research, like that was done by this school at this time and found these things. Now, what he's about to say next, I don't think he's inaccurate about. What he's about to talk about is that indeed, people don't save enough money. That's something you hear us talk about on the podcast. You see us talk about on the YouTube channel and in our books. No question. People don't save enough money. But what I want you to hear next is what happens when someone who, what they choose to do is lambast their critics rather than answer their critics with facts. We see it happen all the time in the media. In fact, it's almost more normal in the media today that people lambast their critics by criticizing the critic rather than pointing to the evidence for the way that they think.
And that people don't have money at retirement is not because of their poor rate of return, because they never invest. Let me tell you what your rate of return is. The quality of your assets on money you never invest. Zero.
He's right
the
there.
Number one problem in retirement readiness in America today, the number one reason 401k plans are failing at your workplace management team is not because you don't offer good mutual fund options in the 401k. It's because people don't put a freaking money in the fund.
And I would submit that even if someone followed Dave's plan and didn't get 12, they're better off than having done nothing for sure. So but the problem would be if they're following those calculations and they say, oh, well, at this point, if I'm going to get 12, here's where I'm going to be, like the numbers that you said, and I'm done.
Well, and think about how many people, the reason that they don't save enough is they've been getting told in the media that they're going to get 12, and it's like 12, and I never get 12, and gosh, bless, stock market's fixed. I'm not putting my money in there anymore. And that's more likely to happen, frankly, at the income levels he's really appealing to, which I think is the problematic part. Coming up next is him answering his critics. We're not going to go all the way through this video. I would actually encourage people to watch the rest of this video, and you start to see what you want to watch out for in any financial entertainer. Not that they're not entertaining all the time. Not that Dave Ramsey might not help you shift your mindset to spend and live more within your means, which is great. But when it comes to deep financial advice, we just did some of these calculations based upon $100,000. If you're watching this and you have a couple of $1 million to invest, all of the problems created by the misinformation compound at a drastic rate.
And then you have a 0% rate of return. And you can discuss real rate of return, post-inflation. You can discuss all the freaking mathematical theories that some of you financial nerds just sit around and crunch your numbers all the time and you do nothing to help people.
All right. Financial nerd 1, financial nerd 2.
Can you give it like 10 more seconds?
Yep.
Because I think he's going to.
And what we do is we get people to actually invest. Are they going to get 12%? No. They might get 14. Are they going to get 14? No. They might get 18. Last year, it wouldn't have been unusual to get 18 in that year. Do I project that as an average annual going forward? No, I don't. But do I believe this crap that you people put out there that the market's only going to average 6% when it's averaged almost double that? Because all you do is sit and beat your gums
right
in the
here.
financial world and run your freaking mouth, and you don't do anything except talk people into being negative about this stuff because you're such nerds and you get caught up in the think tank aspects of the business instead of understanding there are human beings on the other side of this that get a 0% rate of return 100% of the time.
Let me know when you're ready.
Invest.
We can pause it.
I can't take it anymore.
I know.
We have to stop there.
There's some numbers that he was going to throw out in a second. I'll be ready when it happens. But let's chat.
So what we hear there is it's him lambasting his critics. Because there's a lot of critics out there online about where's Dave Ramsey's 12% rate of return. There's a bunch of them. And we're not lambasting that. We're just trying to teach you guys to critically think about things that you hear. That it's like, just make sure it's true. And in this case, he's even said, I don't think people are going to get 12. They might get 14. What? Maybe, I'm not saying it couldn't happen.
Well, in any one year, it absolutely does happen.
Yep. And yet what he's wanting to do is to diminish, like later in this video, he talks about somebody who has invested the time, effort, and energy and diligence to get a CFP as a certified financial Pharisee.
Well, to be fair, he does separate those into maybe you're doing really good, maybe you're not. So,
okay.
Yeah.
But all the same, it's like if anybody has anything negative to say about me, they're not helping enough people by his measure, whatever that is. And I'm okay. Corey, I'm okay.
Good.
But what I will say is,
off the ledge,
this is hurting people whose expectations are getting off, or worse yet, their projections. Somebody literally could go from sufficiency, be on track for sufficiency, and people would save more money. If they're doing their calculation at home and they're thinking they're going to get 12 because of his talk over and over again, talking about 12, This person that wrote this letter, and if they took his response seriously, what are they projecting now for the future? They're not projecting 7. I would much rather project and work towards 7 and be super happy that I got 10 than to have projected 12 and got 10. Very different ballgame. Oh, by the way, guess what licensed professionals could not possibly say about you getting as a long-term rate of return? More than 12. 12 is literally the highest a licensed professional could help somebody project about their earnings on their investments for the future.
And you better bet We're not going to do that. But if we were, the reams of paper of notes substantiating why that level of risk was okay for that person and why.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the number one reason people's retirement program is failing, is they don't put freaking money in it. It's not because they put it into a mutual fund that made 11.25 instead of 11.7.
Oh, can you pause there for a second? That's what I was waiting for. We were so close. I just felt like doing the math. If you had $1 million over 20 years, the difference between 11.25 and 11.75 is actually like close to $800,000. So,
well, and you probably didn't get that because you may have had to pay taxes, or maybe because we know, and if you watch some of our other videos, you'll see that these active managers do not beat the market on average over time, but some do. We just don't know who they are in advance. So somebody might have, and in this case, we found maybe as many as 5 mutual funds that actually performed over 12 since the beginning of time, and yet every bit of academic study shows us that even those funds, even if they did it 30 years, there's zero evidence they can repeat that performance in future years after that period of time.
I'd like to give Dave a rebuttal for him, like let him rebut, like, because I get, he said something in a video and I'm being a little bit nitpicky, 11.2, 11.7. Oh, actually, Dave, it's 8. Great. That's what he's frustrated with, except when he's being that cavalier, throwing numbers out everywhere on a show where people are supposedly building their financial plans.
Yes.
So be a planner or be an entertainer. But when you blur the line between both, you're creating a real danger for the people that are listening.
Yes. And so far, just notice what we've done. A little bit of Google. Is that accurate? Is it real? And then bring it back to the laboratory and test it, which is what Corey did in analyzing those rates of return. Okay, that's it. Are we good? We don't need to go any further in this one. He just kind of continues running.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So join us again. We're going to go deep into some other financial entertainers. We're going to be looking at Susie Orman. We're going to continue to look at Dave Ramsey. We're going to have a lot of fun with Jim Cramer. And one of our favorites that I think when we poke him with a stick, we might get some, I don't know, we may have a Twitter war. Corey doesn't want that.
Certainly,
Corey wants me to stay on the ledge. But what I will say is that there's going to be some other bloggers out there that just as similarly, without the licensure, without the liability or responsibility, are choosing to go out and offer advice. And here's the problem for all these people. Similarly, if I were to say, hey, you might want to consider eating on this diet, it might work for you. I would suggest that you not listen to me as a final authority. I'm not a physician. I'm not a dietitian. I don't have a single certificate that says I know what I'm talking about in that realm. Now, it's not that I might be right with my advice. That doesn't mean I'm not. I might be able to change your mindset and help you be healthier than you would have been otherwise. Those are all possible. But what you don't want to do is make a decision that could change your life forever. And here's the problem when it comes to money. And this is where we're going to close, is that with money, it's a unique part of your life. Like if I get hungry for a bunch of Thai food and ice cream this weekend, and I just eat my toes off. Like I just eat a ton of food, all that's like, I'll gain a few pounds over the weekend, but it doesn't ruin my life. It's not going to kill me. But there are people, and there are many, many, many recorded times where people make a significant error, oftentimes because of hype, media, entertainment, or fraud, fueled by all of those others, where people make a mistake. And when you make a mistake with your money, especially when you make it later on in life, when you have some substantial assets, let me tell you, you can't rebuild it. It's not like making a mistake and eating too much food over the weekend. In fact, it might upset and destroy all the work you've done up to this point. So what we're going to do with this series, we're not going to make fun of these people, although sometimes it would be easy to. We're not going to talk down to them, although periodically they may deserve it. What we're going to do is we're going to continue to dig in and show you how to see through some of the entertainment down to the facts. And for the sake of this video, I think Corey and I will both agree, Dave is right. that the biggest hindrance to people's financial wellness is that they don't set aside enough money into assets. What we just want to make sure is that people understand how those assets will work for them in simple things like the returns they may get, what they may need to expect, and how they may plan for the future. Corey, any other closing comments?
I would, if I can close this out, I want to say I have a big relief. That went better than I thought. We didn't have to talk you down off the ledge. We just kind of hung around up there. And if you want to find out more, info at sfgwa.com is how you can reach us if you'd like to have a one-on-one conversation. Our website, sfgwa.com. You can find some other white papers and podcasts. We have a new one.
Twitter at Sound Financial One.
And on Facebook.
Numeric One. And on Facebook, yeah. So reach out to us.
Glad you could join us. Look for the next one soon.
We hope this has been a contribution to you being able to design and build a good life.